right, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're located. My name is Marcus Grimm, and I want to thank you for joining us for today's program, which is why 70% of CRM implementations fail and how to beat the odds. This is going to be a fun one. Craig, go ahead and turn on your camera. Let's not hide your face from the audience, folks. You know this guy. Craig Iskowitz is in fact the founder and CEO of Ezra Group, which is a consulting firm that helps wealth management firms and fintechs optimize their technology and business strategy. Hey, he's a recognized authority in wealth tech. He also hosts the Wealth Tech Today podcast and blog, where he shares insights on digital transformation, platform design, and the future of wealth tech advice. You've seen Craig. He speaks frequently at industry events. He advises leading fintech companies on growth and innovation. Craig, I've got you on the other side of the microphone. I am so happy that you are joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate someone else doing my intro rather than me having to go through all my recognition. Much easier to sit and listen.
Yes, exactly. Well, we're thrilled to have you with us. Now, listen, for the audience who's here, my guess is it's probably not the first webinar you've been to. Let's go through some of the housekeeping. Yes, absolutely. This program is being recorded. You'll get access to the recording and slides. Please, by all means, ask questions throughout the program. Depending on the questions that come in, we'll address them as they come in, or if not, Craig and I have made sure that we've freed up a bunch of time at the end of the program so that we can get to all those. And finally, the only thing we ask of you is at the end of this presentation, there will be a short one-question survey. Hey, please take the survey. We appreciate it. We appreciate the feedback. It helps us figure out what content works for these types of shows. And we've got a great audience here today. So we're really looking forward to get into this one. Now, here's the actual agenda that Craig and I are going to be speaking about today. We're going to be talking about why CRM deployments fail for RIAs. And actually, before we get into it, we'll even discuss, well, what does failure mean, and what does it actually look like in your world? And then we all talk about failure and we all talk about problems and challenges, but the reality is Craig's got a pretty cool framework that we can think about how to reconcile some of these challenges we have. We're actually positioning these as 4 trade-offs that your firm should think about when you're deciding which CRM should we use, or even how that CRM should be built out. Then we'll talk about some common misalignments, particularly those that might appear between management and also your frontline workers, but also just in terms of you and the other members of your leadership team. What are you trying to accomplish? And then guess what? This isn't Craig's first rodeo or Ezra's first rodeo. So we're going to be talking about some of the tools that Ezra has to actually kind of look at yourself through these tools and say, okay, what do we need to do to get our CRM back on track, or maybe how should we think about this differently if in fact we're considering taking one out and bringing in a new one? And then of course live Q&A all along the way. So let's get started with this one. I'm actually going to start with a sobering statistic, and it was one of those that when I read it, Craig, I actually thought, wow, this number sounds pretty bad. But there's a study from the Harvard Business Review, and in this particular study, executives were asked, hey, does the CRM really help your business grow? And 90%, Craig, of executives said no. Now this article is a few years old, Craig, but still, are you surprised at all by that figure? You're muted.
No, I thought it might be higher.
You thought it might
be possible. I mean, there's just very few firms. We work with a lot of RIAs and broker dealers, wealth management firms of all shapes and sizes, and nobody is happy. Very, very few, single-digit percent will tell me, we love our CRM. It's great. It's doing everything we want. Very few feel that way. And there's a number of different reasons as to why, which we'll get into.
Yeah, let's dig into like and I love you said the number feels low, and I wouldn't disagree, but when we talk about CRMs and what companies are trying to do or achieve from them, what do you mean when you say things like, hey, listen, we're not necessarily optimizing these for the right things?
Yeah, I mean the issue is that when we say they're not optimizing, that it's the trade-offs that are being made when you're putting in a CRM. Well, first of all, many firms when they pick a CRM, they think, well, we bought the CRM, now we're done. Now everything's just going to work. They don't realize that there's a lot of planning involved. As you mentioned, on the screen, oversight versus outcomes. What are the outcomes you're expecting from your CRM? When we think about that, and they say, well, we need one. We want to get off of Outlook or off of Excel, so let's just get a CRM. We don't think about the trade-offs that need to be made, the decisions that need to be made when you're putting in a CRM. That's what's to it.
And as we talk about these, one of the things that I think you often bring up is this idea that the discussion of these trade-offs, this really shouldn't be happening when the coders are already at work, right? This is often, I often like to say lots of times in business and business process, the mistakes we think we make actually happen 2 steps before they did. The same thing here, right? You often find that when you get into these projects, they should have been thinking about what exactly are we trying to accomplish before the coders got on board, right?
Well, it's not the coders; it's the implementation people. Right? So
Right.
you're working with the vendor's implementation team, but they've got many other things. They've got many other clients. They've got a lot of other things to do. You're not the most important person to them, which is where Ezra Group helps a lot. Since we know all the vendors, we will work with them to make sure you're getting the A team, and then we provide the value when it comes to thinking about the decisions you need to make that will enable the best adoption and capabilities in the system. There's dozens and dozens, sometimes hundreds of decisions that have to be made when you're implementing a CRM, data you're using, features you're using, data you're converting from your other CRM or from various areas of your business, cleaning the data, how you're processing things, how you're managing it, which features you're using and not using. So all those decisions have to be made. And we've been doing this for decades. This is our 20th year in business, and CRM is one of the most popular applications we work with. Whereas most client firms, most RIAs, broker dealers, and such, the people on staff have maybe done 1, 2, or more, maybe 3 CRM conversions in their career, and we do dozens per year.
Right.
So we know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. We know where the road landmines are, so we can help make these decisions and make the right decisions for you.
Right. When you're talking about dashboards like this, and I think we've all seen them, right? You go into an executive's office and you see the dashboards up there, and we have 2 examples on the screen. We've got, okay, so sometimes you see those activity dashboards, or I like to call them oversight dashboards. Here's how many calls we made. Here's how many tasks are overdue. When you're doing that and you're policing your organization so that the CRM is really tracking, okay, what are your people doing as opposed to what are they accomplishing? What as we go to the next slide here, what are some of the downstream ramifications of that?
Yeah, the dashboards have become a lot better over time. If you look at the way things were even 5 years ago, there weren't a lot of dashboards, and we're seeing the CRMs building out more capabilities around that, and especially on business intelligence, which is super helpful for advisory firms. But a lot of it is the management sees the CRM as a tool to run the business, and advisors see it as Big Brother. Leave me alone. I don't want to do it. And that's oftentimes one of the biggest roadblocks we see to adoption and usage, because if you're spending a lot of money for CRM, and if the data isn't going in on time and clean, basically the management reports you're going to get are useless.
Right, right. So if you're in an organization, like I think this is one of these I would almost call this a decay loop, right? That we see a lot, where the advisors disengage. They say, I'm not going to update the CRM. So now immediately within a certain number of time, leadership stops trusting the dashboards because the dashboards don't show anything. And now just like that, you have this platform, this other piece of software that your team really isn't using. Now, at a super high level, and I think one of the phrases you often talk about is change management. But how exactly does this happen?
Well, how does it happen in terms of how does it get misaligned?
Yeah.
It's back to what we were just talking about, which is there's no plan for implementing this. And one other area we talk about a lot, besides just getting the data right, besides getting the features configured properly, besides working with the vendor's team to understand what you should, like how you should be using the system is the communication to your team, right? When we're, I often use the comparison when you're marketing to your prospects, if they sign a contract with you, sign the agreement, you don't stop marketing to them. You don't stop communicating with them.
Right.
You continue to express your value to your current clients because you want to keep that relationship strong. You should do the same thing with your staff, your advisors, your operations team, your admins. You need to constantly communicate to them why we have a CRM. Why do we spend this money? We didn't just do it because we had extra money lying around. We didn't just do it to make your life more difficult. We did it to make the business run better. We did it to make your lives easier. We did it to, and most advisors in general have two motivations when they're using any technology. Obviously, the ultimate one is to make their clients' financial lives better. Everyone, most advisors are in the business because they want to truly help their clients live better lives and with their finances. But the software is designed to either help them be more efficient, so save time, so I can go home early, I can get my job done quicker because I want to go see my family, or they want to make more money. So they want to have more clients, generate more revenue, get more wallet share. And CRMs can do both. But you need to talk to each one of your advisors and see which one is motivating them. And then explain to them, look, we put the CRM in so you can get this job done quicker and you can go home, or we did this CRM. Here's the ways you can make more money. Here's where we can get a better pipeline. We can close more clients, and you're gonna make more money that way. So it's a constant communication that causes the misalignment that they think drop the CRM in, give them a week's training, and now it should be working. And then they call us a year later and like, CRM, no one's using it. We're not getting any data out of it, and half the data we have is wrong.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's really well said. Like you want to connect back to what are the actual benefits your team is getting. Whenever anyone talks about adoption, I always worry that we're not talking about value enough, right? If I find value in a piece of software, you're not going to have to convince me to use it, right? I'm going to want to use it. Now we're going to spend some time here on these four major trade-offs, and I'm actually going to start here, Craig. Look, it's 2025. Can't I just get a CRM? Why do I have to make trade-offs? Can't I get something that is bound to just make me happy?
Well, yeah, and well, whatever software you have is going to make you happy if you're using it right, right? If it's been configured right and it's set up right. I mean, just an example, all CRMs have a feature called custom data fields, user-defined data fields. But if you don't think about what you want to use them for, it can become very haphazard, and you're just creating them on the fly. Then a couple of years go by, and you've got all these different fields. No one remembers why we set them up this way. The data that's being implemented isn't consistent and isn't standardized. So those kinds of trade-offs when you're making decisions, when you're implementing a CRM, is very important to understand the ramifications down the road and a domino effect. You make this change, you make this decision that affects this and this and this down. That's something we are very knowledgeable in.
I think the fourth bullet point here touches on what you said before. Lots of times when you see these failures of implementation, they're not truly failures of implementation. They're sort of a reflection of some of the trade-off decisions that were made earlier in the discussion, right?
Well, no, I mean, it is the implementation, right? So you're implementing the software, and you have to make those decisions when you're getting it up and running. And yes. Oftentimes, when clients ask us, well, how long will this take? I said, well, if you had nothing else to do, we can get it done in a weekend, right? But you're running a business. You've got to manage your clients. You have things to do. Your team is busy. We've got plenty of time. This is all that we do is implement software. But, it takes, many weeks or months, usually to get a CRM fully implemented because of the time it takes to review the data. You're talking about hundreds or thousands of households at a firm. You have to review them all, look at how it's set up, how it's configured, understand how you're changing your workflows, understanding how integrations are working. So all that happens over a period of many months, and oftentimes they kind of maybe drift off and forget why they did something, or maybe they're not really paying. They're kind of distracted by an emergency that comes in, right? So these trade-offs, we drive the process and make sure you understand the trade-offs, that we make them for you, or help you with them, rather help you make those trade-offs and ensure that it's set up for where you want to be 5 years from now, not where you want.
Yeah, that is really well said. Making decisions that are going to work for your firm, not just today, but down the road. Hey, please keep the questions coming in. We got one from Brad already. This is the easy one. This is my layup one for the day. Will the recording or slides be sent out? Absolutely. If technology works right, you'll probably have it within an hour of this program. But either way, we'll make sure we get those for you. Please keep those questions coming in. Now, one of the things that's interesting, you talk about these trade-offs, and there's so many big decisions that we can make, Craig. But what I really like about it, we're heading into the meat of the presentation right now, which is really 4 trade-offs that you feel like firms really need to consider before they start evaluating anything. So we're going to break down each one of these. My opinion is these 4 can kind of relate to any industry, but boy, they're super specific to your industry and wealth tech. So let's take a look at the first one. This one, Craig, you call authority versus autonomy. What are we getting at here?
So the authority versus autonomy is that you normally want the CRM to be your single source of truth when it comes to client information, and everything should be in there. However, many firms, especially if they've been in business for a while, a decade or more, sometimes advisors kind of go off the reservation. Maybe they do their own thing. They have spreadsheets, they have their Outlook, they have their Rolodex, and they keep data in other places. And if you don't enforce that, and most firms are in different states. They may, if they have their CRM for 10 years plus, everyone knows how to use it. If they've only implemented it last year, they're still getting the hang of it. They could be in some middle state. Some firms have multiple CRMs, right? We've seen that. If they've done an acquisition and they let the other firm keep their CRM, which we don't recommend, but it happens. So there's no one current state for every firm. Every firm is sort of in their own journey, but making the authority that the CRM has to be the source of truth. All the data has to be updated in there, or it didn't happen. And that's another common phrase we hear. If it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen. But that's got to come from the top down. You need to say if it's not in the CRM, they're not going to pay you for this client. If that data is in the CRM, that could be very strong way of looking at it. But if you don't do it, what we call it's slowly turning into garbage, right? You're slowly garbagifying your data. It doesn't happen over a weekend. It happens over months and years of neglect or incorrect implementations or standards not being enforced.
What are some? I'm curious, and like you, I've heard that line. I've heard that line many times. We want our CRM to be the single source of truth. When we talk about trade-offs, I think that's a great line of a CEO saying this is what we believe in. But how does that line inform the advice now that you're going to give it as a consultant when they say, hey, here CRM is the single source of truth?
Well, it can be a number of different reasons, a number of different areas. One is some firms that are using larger CRMs build out capabilities like a Salesforce. They'll build all their capabilities inside Salesforce. So putting accounts to launch with Salesforce, money movement to launch with Salesforce. Most of the key advisor workflows they'll build into Salesforce. So Salesforce controls their entire experience. It doesn't do all that work. It goes to the custodian, it goes to the portfolio management system, it might go to financial planning even. But the CRM becomes the core. You also, even for smaller firms, we do a lot of work with integrations. And knowing which application is pushing data versus pulling data is important. If the CRM is a source of truth, it should push the client information to the financial planning tool, not the other way around. Right. If you don't set that up right, you might get someone updating the money guide and sending data to the CRM, which you didn't want updated.
Right. Excellent. Really well said. So authority versus autonomy, certainly one of the first big trade-offs to consider at your firm. I want to move on to this next one now. This one, Craig, as you know, I'm a big fan of marketing automation. And this to me is a fascinating one about your world, the RIA industry. Simple question, folks. When we talk about the word customer CRM, it stands for customer relationship management. But what about people before they become a client or a customer? Where do they live? Do they live inside your CRM, or do they live someplace different? And Craig, it's really interesting in your world. Frequently, they live in 2 different places. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. But it really is one of those big trade-offs that's important to unpack, right?
Indeed, yeah. And the prospecting versus customer management, and in the advisory room, our CRMs are really C for customer, C for client, relationship management. Whereas in other industries, CRM, C also includes prospects. So anybody you interact with, whether if they're not a customer yet, they still go with CRM. But
CRMs, which are Redtail, Wealthbox, Advisor Engine, and Salesforce. They are really client management systems. They're designed for once the client signs on, the prospect signs, becomes a client, then we start working with them in the CRM. Whereas on the marketing side, when you're prospecting, when it's a lead and you're moving from a lead to a prospect and nurturing them through, that's really not the CRM's job. There's some of these tools have built out some prospecting capabilities, that they're there, some pipeline capabilities. They definitely have those features, but when it comes to the mass, email campaigns, very complicated drip campaigns, nurturing campaigns, the main CRMs don't really have a lot of functionality in that area because they haven't been really driven that way. And most firms use something else like a HubSpot, a SharpSpring, a Marketo, or any number of the other thousands of marketing tools, even just MailChimp or Constant Contact. They might just use those as their outbound marketing tools.
Right. Really well said. And I think the implications here are really interesting, right? Because the whole idea being, if you as a firm have a very extensive marketing budget, you're probably going to want to be able to track the ROI on that and value the customer. So that's more of an argument towards a centralized piece. But Craig, as you point out, Advisor Engine's a great example where Advisor Engine isn't truly made for marketing automation. It's an excellent CRM. And again, I think your whole point is neither of these is inherently right or wrong, but the decisions you make will have obvious downstream downstream results, right?
Exactly. And I apologize, my AirPods, I think, are cutting out. Hold on, just 1 second.
You got it. We lost you for a short 10 seconds, but
my AirPods dropped out. So yes, there's no right or wrong in any of these. You can how your firm is set up. Every RIA is slightly different. It's like they're like snowflakes. They all, even though they have the same job, working with clients and their assets and liabilities and their financial lives, how they actually do that is always slightly different. So there's no right or wrong way. But however, firms that are looking for organic growth, that are looking to push out marketing content and drive leads that way, need usually some sort of dedicated marketing tools like a HubSpot, a Sales, a SharpSpring, MailChimp or Marketo or something that can handle complicated multi-level marketing, multi-channel marketing campaigns.
Really well said. Really well said.
Oh, well, before I go on, well, also there's other standalone. If you look at the Ezra Group map, there's a lot of digital marketing tools that are just for advisors, like SnappyCracken, FMG, and others that are also full feature marketing platforms.
So again, you have all these other options, but the key trade-off decision is going to be, does it need to be integrated, or how tightly does it need to be integrated with your CRM?
Yeah, and all those tools, SnappyCracken and FMG, we're very familiar with. It's the two of the leading advisor digital marketing platforms are tightly integrated with all the top CRMs as well. So when you're moving from a lead to a prospect to a client, that data just moves right along into whatever your CRM is. You don't need to rekey that.
Excellent. You said a word on our last slide that we're going to come back to. The word that you talked about was process. So I think one of the next big trade-offs that we often talk about in a CRM is this one: flexibility versus consistency. In other words, must I log my notes in a certain given way, or can I do whatever I want? And boy, that's a big decision to make early on, right, Craig?
It is, and that's the other aspect we're talking about making everything consistent. You want to train everyone in how to access the system and update it, and also encourage them to do things the same way. Even though they all may have their own way of doing things, you want the data to be coming into the system consistently and not haphazardly or else the system won't be able to process things properly.
And let's talk about this, because I feel like this one comes up a lot with your clients, right? This is one of those areas where if you have an extremely buttoned up process that everyone follows at all times, that's going to mean something for your CRM. If the answer to too many of your questions is it depends, that's going to mean other things as it relates to your CRM, right?
Yeah, and we've seen some just in the past year with the advent of AI note takers, which everyone has seen, and we have a report on our website, ezragroup.com, about those, and we're updating that. These note takers are now enforcing consistency, or rather delivering consistency without automatically doing it. Because if you're letting the note taker record the meeting, it's going to then pull all the data out of the call or the meeting, and then push it into the CRM for you. Now we strongly encourage our clients, our RIA clients, that they don't let those note takers just push automatically, that they should be sending an email back to the advisor. Here's what I heard in the meeting. Do you want me to send this or not?
Yes.
And make sure the advisor is the one pushing the button, because we all know that AI can hallucinate and can make mistakes, and you don't want that information in a note in the CRM that the compliance can look at, or that would be wrong or incorrect, because it could come down to bite you. But that the consistency, the AI note takers are greatly improving the consistency of data going into CRM.
Right. And I'm glad you talked about this from a consistency and how it relates to AI and automation, because you and I, when we were working on this program, we were like, well, is that the same thing, or is that the different, or is that different? And in the end, we agreed that these are two slides. So we just did flexibility versus consistency. But tightly related to that is the idea of automation versus manual. So this is our final trade-off. So the idea being that if I'm thinking about buying or upgrading my CRM, it's kind of a big choice for me today, right? How much of this process am I now trying to power with automation?
So this links to the previous slide, the consistency. Besides having a consistent process, you need to write things down. You need to document and have a standard operating procedure manual. Even if it's just 1 page each, you need to write things down, and you need to define and decide when things occur, what roles you have in your firm, who is in each role, and what they do and when they do it. We don't have a sometimes button in the CRM, right? You can't say, well, sometimes we do it this way, and sometimes we would do it that way. We hear this all the time. We know we can't do it that way. You can't have, there's no sometimes. I need to know when this occurs, who's doing it, and when. And you'd be surprised the number of firms that tell me they haven't written anything down. But they're $2 billion, and they've been growing very fast because everyone just knows what to do. Well, you're going to have difficulty scaling, and I can't build an automated process if I don't see what the process is. If it's not written down, I'm going to have to go to every one of your people and ask them what they do, and then I'm going to have to build an automated process that, if it's not standardized, I can't build one automated process for each person on your staff. It has to be one account opening process, one money movement process, one address change process, and so on. One check requirement. If the client wants a check, what's the process? If a client terminates, what's the process, right? So all these things have to be written down. So we can't automate them if you don't have your standard operating procedures agreed upon across the firm and document.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. When we talk about large projects like this, we always talk about the pyramid of people, process, technology, right? And so people is part of what we're talking about today, actually, is the leadership on your team making those trade-off decisions. What are we optimizing for in the first place? Then to your point, Craig, before we get to technology, which is the final step, it's that process step in the middle, right? We absolutely have to have those processes locked in.
And the more automation you build, the more you're going to be able to scale your firm. We see some firms with $2 to $5 billion in assets. Some have 15 staff, some have 35 or 40. How can they do that? They're delivering the same level of service, but one has automated their processes and one hasn't, and they're still doing things manually. There's still a lot of Excel filling the gaps. So if you want to scale your firm and be more efficient, being able to automate and looking at more automation and fewer manual processes is the way to do it.
Excellent. So when you think about then this whole concept of automation versus manual, these are our 4 trade-offs now. you've kind of bundled these all into what I refer to as this CRM, this idea of this CRM trade-off scorecard. So I guess the thought process here is get your executive team in a room and say, hey, listen, figure out where we stand on these 4 issues before we do anything, right?
Absolutely, and we can anyone who wants that, can please ask if we can get you a copy of our CRM trade-off scorecard after the webinar. But yeah, so the being able to track these is important, and it helps you to think, right? A lot of this is not telling you the right way or the wrong way to do it, because there's so many different ways you can do these things. It's more of we want you to think about it and make the decisions. And I can't tell you how many times you come into a firm where it's got 3 or 4 partners and they never sat down and talked about this. They just assumed, well, you're in charge of technology, partner A or B, just do it and then get back to us when it's done, rather than saying, well, this is how we need to decide on this. Here's the trade-offs we need to make. How are we doing this together, and how is this working? And when the firm is growing, do we expect to be $5-10 billion in the next number of years? And are we doing M&A? Are we growing that way? Are we growing organically? How many advisors do we want? Are we, what other types of services are we offering? When other types of features that many CRMs have is, for example, client segmentation. You want to do different service levels. That's built into the CRM. I can't build that if you don't have a client segmentation strategy. Right. If you don't have, if it's not clearly defined, many firms we work with, they just know. Well, with these guys, they're the Iskowitz family. We need to take very good care of them. But the Grimm family, we don't really talk to them that much. And
right.
But I don't know that. I need a process to say, is it AUM based? Is it, that's usually the most common way, but it could be other aspects of it that change the way you decide. Are they platinum clients or bronze clients, or are they level A or B or C clients, right? So I need to know that information, and you need to decide that for yourselves. How you're dividing up your quintiles of your clients, so that I can build the client segmentation and the support strategy properly.
Yeah, you made a statement before, and I think it bears repeating that RIAs, each one does do, they do have their own special go-to-market or their own special twist, but it is interesting when you look through this lens of these 4 trade-offs, you do see some common misalignments. I've got them here on a slide that we often think of when we're talking to RIAs, right?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, they think they buy the CRM and they're done, and they don't need to do anything. Or they've got a lot of ideas on customization, and they want to do a lot of work around that, but they don't really realize that it's not as easy as it sounds. If someone has a brother-in-law or a nephew who can code, and we're going to build a bunch of stuff, that's the easy part. It's the ongoing maintenance and support of that new code that you have to then support forever. That's going to be a headache for you down the road. So need to really think about that. And then we talked about automating. There's a lot of automation now that's cleaning up the data with the AI note takers, but there's also other tools. You may be bringing in data from other applications. You may be multi-custodial, which could cause some issues depending on the system you're using. So there's way more complications these days. You may be selling other services or other products that require a different CRM or a different portal. If you are selling insurance, we have a lot of RIAs that we work with are also selling insurance, and most CRMs on the financial advisor side don't really understand insurance, and they wind up having another CRM because we have a whole list of information we need when we're selling to insurance clients that isn't captured in the standard financial advisor CRMs, or they're going to build their own, or they're going to customize Salesforce, which is another common way to do it. So, but thinking about what the longer term ramifications of that is oftentimes not done. And a couple of years ago we built this thing and now we don't really know how to use it anymore. The guy left and it's not working. What do we do?
I love what you said there, because it's, if we go back to our hypothetical CEO from before, if that was a CEO who said, I want my one single source of truth, now you're trying to do these insurance products. Okay, that's okay if that's still the vision for your firm, but it definitely, how we approach that project is going to be very different than somebody says, it doesn't have to be my single source of truth.
And also, besides insurance, it also looks at alternative investments, which has become very, very popular. And there may be information you want to capture. Are they are they certified, or are they capable of buying alternatives, and other information you might want to know about them might not be captured in most CRMs. That's when you're creating user-defined fields to store that data, and that becomes a little bit more haphazard.
So once you met with your team and you've thought through these 4 trade-offs, we kind of have here, this is what we recommend you do. You're going to visualize these trade-offs on one page, and you and your team hopefully is going to be aligned. But this means, Craig, that now you've got some executive alignment. Right now is the time for you to really be able to start making some decisions in terms of how your firm should be thinking about this project, right?
Exactly. And when you talk about visualizing the trade-offs, writing things down changes the way we think. And it's very common. We've been doing this for 20 years. I've been in financial services for over 35 years. And it's very common where once you start writing down something, people's thoughts about it change. Seeing it on a board, on a whiteboard, or on a PowerPoint slide changes the way people's minds work. And when you start thinking about, the CRM, here's how it's going to integrate, and here's what we want to do, and here's our workflows, their brains start to work differently, and they start making different connections of the dots, and you'll find out you didn't think about a lot of different things.
Yeah. This is kind of our advice for what happens when you can sort of hold up that scorecard, right? It provides alignment and focuses. And the other thing that I think is interesting here, Craig, and this is a tough one. That last bullet point, try and not be distracted by bells and whistles. Like, if we make decisions about our trade-offs, it's if you've worked hard to make that decision, you kind of want to use it to sort of help you what not to be distracted by, right?
Yeah, this is a whole nother webinar on how to select a vendor.
Yeah.
And Ezra Group, again, we've been doing this 20 years. We have our own proprietary methodology, which we train our clients on how to evaluate and select software. Yeah. And it's a whole process. It's not a complicated process, but you need to be trained on it, and you want everyone to be following the same process. In a nutshell, it is defining what your priorities are, what's important to you, balancing the criteria. You have 10 different criteria categories. For example, is price more important than features? Is vendors market share more important than reliability? There's many different trade-offs. Is integration more or less important than the other one? So yeah. We have to have that conversation, and then that helps us define those categories, and then we can help you train on how to score the different vendors. So at the end of the process, you've got a documented scorecard of different vendors that you can then go to senior management or your board of directors and say, why'd you pick XYZ vendor? Here's why. Here's the process Ezra Group set up for us. We defined it this way. We made the scoring. Here's why this vendor was picked over this vendor. Boom, it's all documented. You have a decision you can make, and you can go back and remember why we made that decision.
This presentation, simple. It's a simple, clean presentation. If I don't have a CRM, if I've never bought one before, Craig, as you and I were discussing, pretty much everyone who's on this call probably has something else. And based on the data that we saw earlier from an HBR from Harvard Business Review, they're probably not satisfied. So if we talk about these trade-offs and the fact that I likely have a CRM that I'm likely not happy with, what do I do with this information?
Well, it's a great question. What I would say is most firms that aren't happy with the CRM, it's not the CRM's fault. It's their fault, right? It's usually their internal processes, their decision making that haven't been fully baked. Because most of the CRMs are pretty similar, right? 80% of the functionality is pretty much similar what they're doing, whether it's contact management, calendars, email syncing, reporting, workflows, task management. That's all very similar. The way they do it is different. The screens are different. The workflow is a little different, and that's a personal taste and how they were built. But the core is the same. So most of the time we find that we make a lot of money on conversions. I'm happy to convert you, but if I convert you to a new application, if we haven't fixed those internal problems at your firm, you're not going to be happy with the new application either.
Right, right. Really well said. And this brings us actually here to our last two slides, which the last one's going to be Q&A. Please keep those questions coming in. I really appreciate them. We're going to get to them all in a minute. And this is quote unquote the selling part of the presentation, right, Craig? So talk to me a little bit about this. What you and I just went through really briefly, this Ezra trade-off session. This is one of many steps that you take with firms to sort of help see them on their path to righting the ship or choosing a new CRM, right?
Exactly. And again, we don't get paid by any vendors. We don't take referral fees or finder's fees or revenue share. It makes no difference to us. We are completely independent and agnostic, similar to how an advisor is if they don't take any fees or 12B1 fees from revenue share from any investment products. They're completely agnostic. They just want that they only get paid by their clients to give them good investment advice. We only get paid by our clients to give them good technology and operation advice. Right. So it makes no difference to us which of the CRMs you are using, as long as you have one. So we're most likely, I would tell you to stick with what you have. It's probably fine, unless there's very specific needs you might have around some capabilities like if you have multiple offices, if you're an RIA aggregator and you're buying up RIAs, you want them all to have their own separate database and roll up into a bigger database. That would be a specific need that only certain CRMs can handle. So those types of things. If certain workflow requirements you have that you want to deal from the CRM, we know that some do it better than others, and those kind of capabilities and complexities, we might pick one over another. So those kind of trade-offs will help you to make and help you to think about it. But we'll usually start at the top and do a full CRM evaluation, a 60 to 90-day evaluation to really understand why you picked it, what it's doing, what the issues are, what's wrong with it, and then come up with an action plan for how you can fix your current CRM and make it work, and make it worth the money you've been paying for.
Yeah, it's a really great description of what Ezra does, and it's a really great opportunity for anyone in the audience. Again, you'll get, as you step out of this webinar, you're going to be asked, do you want to do a trade-off session with someone on the Ezra team, which certainly we'd be glad to help you there. As we move on to Q&A, we've got a couple of questions in here, Craig. I'm going to take the liberty of being the host and asking the first one.
Yeah, thank God you're the host, not me.
Well, I don't know, man. You've got a few hundred podcasts under your belt. But I do want to ask you, in your industry right now, single source of truth, is it truly a firm by firm thing, or is the industry heading in a direction where you know what, the industry is too complex, we can't do single source of truth, or actually everybody is trying to get that? Any trends that you see, or is this one of those things that you say the trend doesn't matter, what matters is what your firm's trying to do?
No, I mean, CRM is most often the single source of truth for clients. I mean, ultimately, the custodian is really the golden source, right? That's where the money is, right? But as far as your firm is concerned, it's the CRM. That's where you keep all the birthday information, all the notes, every interaction with the client, all the important information you need to manage your clients is in your CRM. So that's really, that hasn't changed, and we're only encouraging firms to do it, to invest more into their CRM, or whatever tool they're using as their CRM. Right? There are some changes coming, I think, around that. I think we're seeing there's also firms that have it on all-in-one platform that has a CRM built in. And so in that case, it's one vendor providing all that information.
Excellent. Let's go on to another question here. Boy, I know you've got a lot of experience on this one. So I know frequently Ezra Group has consultants working underneath them. How do you manage a consultant that's building out your CRM, Salesforce in this particular case, but I don't know that it matters, and avoid an engagement that's longer than necessary? Wow, big question about scoping, Craig. You want to talk about something else that could be a webinar, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you should have hired us. But so, we often refer to managing consultants, and we have a staff of employees, and we also have contractors that work with us. It's often like herding cats, right? So it's very difficult. And the thing is, they're experts in something you're not. And the best way to do it is to write down what your expectations are. So when we do a project, you are going to get a scope document that says, here is exactly what we're doing. And we agree on that before we start the project. And then when the project starts, we go over it again. Here's the scope. Because usually the person negotiating the scope isn't the same as the team. So we'll bring the full team in to go over the scope. Do you all agree with the scope? Yes, we do. Or no, can we change something? That way, so we are all on the way. And then we have regular meetings to say, here's where we are. Here's our progress. Are you okay with this? Right? Because sometimes consultants will just kind of go away and start working, and they come back a month later. It's like, well, this isn't working. Well, where were you in a month? You could have asked that question, right? Or they get too busy with other clients and they forget about you. Right? So you need to be able to manage them on a regular basis, get updated status. Don't let things go on and float for weeks or months because you kind of wake up 6 months down the road and the project that was supposed to take 3 months isn't even happening.
When your clients make a decision with you, Craig, about, okay, thanks, Craig, these are the trade-offs we're going to make. We're going to chase this North Star and that North Star. How do you make sure that that information gets passed on to the consultants, right? Because these consultants have so many solutions they can choose from. How do you make sure that they're also driving towards the strategy and North Star that everyone's agreed on?
Well, you have to hire the right consultant, right? You can't force them to do that. I mean, you're hopefully hiring a consultant like Ezra Group, where we have decades of experience and hundreds of implementations under our belt. So we will drive you, right? It's our job to drive you and the vendor in the right direction. And vendors love us because they know their clients are going to be organized, prepared for all meetings, and have their act together. And clients love us because we can hold the vendor's feet to the fire. We can call BS when they say, "Oh, we can't do that," or "You should do it this way." Like, well, no, that's not the way we've done the last 100 times. Do it this way, or So, and again, vendors are humans and they make mistakes and they get distracted and they have other issues, right? So we want to make sure that you're getting the best implementation and the best team, and that's why people hire us from small RIAs to large broker dealers, because we have the experience with all the vendors and know what's going to work and what isn't going to work.
Great. Very tactical question. It came in here, Craig, that I want your thoughts on, because it's directly related to CRMs. What about, so in this presentation, we've talked about the big names that everyone knows in this space. Obviously, we're paying a lot of attention to what Salesforce is doing, because Salesforce is always very big in this space. But what's your thoughts on firms like Altruist trying to push into this and encroach on CRMs?
I mean, I think it's the you can't change that. It's just the way things are, that everyone is getting into everyone else's space. It goes back to the question we get a lot: is all-in-one or best of breed better? Which way should I go? And the answer is, all things being equal, all-in-one is better, because you don't have all the integration problems. You have fewer vendors to deal with. The workflow is smooth. The UI is the same. However, all things are rarely equal, right? So it's not the case where we just can just take one vendor. Sometimes we've had a CRM for a while. We can't bring another one in, or we don't like, our portfolio management system has a CRM. We don't like it, or it doesn't match with the other way we do business, right? So there's no one right or wrong answer. There's no one right or wrong answer for every firm. Everyone is different, but we're seeing more firms building out CRMs. More firms, like Orion bought Redtail, and now they're working hard to integrate it. And honestly, they're not doing a very good job. It's causing some problems. Right? So in that case, it may not be better, because Orion maybe needs to invest a little bit more money in Redtail to make it integrate better. Whereas other firms, like on Tamarack's side, they've got a CRM, but it's built on Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics, and maybe you don't like that. Maybe you don't want to be on Microsoft Dynamics. So even though it's integrated, you may not want that solution. So I expect to see more firms doing it. There's no one right or the wrong way. We love Altruist, and I'm friendly with Jason Wank, the CEO and founder there, and they're doing some great stuff.
Outstanding. That is a fantastic answer. And I believe it's also brought us down to the end of our question. So this has been a really fun one. Craig, thank you so much for your time today. I've appreciated the opportunity to learn a lot more from you about CRM implementation. As we mentioned, when you leave this webinar, you're going to get a little pop-up question. Hey, would you like to talk to Craig and have a trade-off discussion with him?
We'll talk to our teams.
Talk to Craig and his
Believe it or not, I am the CRM expert. I am not the most knowledgeable CRM person on our team, right? I
and
brought in a lot of.
And I went through this whole show saying I would make sure I said team, and I remembered it until the end, and I didn't. That's all.
You're going to want to talk to our team.
Yes,
if you can, right?
But you can see Craig on his videos and his webinar and all over the speaking circuit. Craig, anything else from you today on this program?
One more thing for you. If you are interested, when we talk about integrations, integrations are incredibly important for any RIA or wealth management firm to operate. And you can go to our website if there's applications you want to know how well they integrate with other applications you have, or if you're looking at other tools in any of the 60 different categories on the Ezra Group keeps this map. If you can go to our website, ezragroup.com, and click on integration scores, and you can see all 575 or 613 different applications we're tracking and how well they integrate, what their integration score is, and how well they integrate with other applications. That's a very useful resource for firms.
Craig, you came out with that a few years ago, and one of the things that's been interesting to me is probably no surprise, but you just keep adding technologies to it. Like when you look at
well,
this,
we have to. The technologies keep coming out. Like Michael Keatis and I, we had our meeting yesterday for the November map, and there was 5 more applications we had to add. Right, so it's we just follow the market. As more applications get added to the map, we check them out and give them a score.
Outstanding. So yeah, please check that out at EzraGroup.com. Wealth Tech Integration Scores. You can see all the top ranked firms across a wide variety of categories. All right, that's going to do it for this one. On behalf of Craig Iskowitz and everyone else at Ezra Group, my name is Marcus Grimm. Thank you so much for joining us today. You will get those slides, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, everyone.